صلى الله عليك يا سيدنا يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب النجاة الأمة أيوة غريب أيوة مظلوم أيوة شهيد كربلاء فيا ليتنا ثم يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوذ والله فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، قال أبا عبد الله في يوم العاشوراء في أرض كربا وبلاء أنا قتيل الأبرار. I am the one who was killed through the amount of weeping and crying. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. My dear brothers, sisters, elders, parents of al-Ajal community, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We, as you can see, are now here on that most tragic and sorrowful ground of Karb and Bala, trial and tribulation, known as Karbala. Known by many names throughout history, Nahnawa, Ghadariya, and others, it was eventually the name Karbala which would become the most famous name of this land because of what befell in 61 AH. And as we are nearly 1400 years now later from those events that took place in these very lands, still the soil, the streets, the earth, the atmosphere weeps for Abu Abdullah والسلام, because it is a land in which the blood of Hussein and Awlad al-Hussein and Ashab al-Hussein والسلام, is mixed. It is a land in which the very flesh and essence of the children of Abu Abdullah السلام and Abu Abdullah himself and his companions is mixed. It is a place where there is so much trial and tribulation, there is so much gham and girya, there is so much bala, that whatever you do, wherever you go, you can't get away from the fact that this is a place where extreme mushkilat befell Muhammad and al Muhammad. And it's a place where we reflect with Zaireen whenever we come, that whether you are sitting in the Haram Sharif of Abu Abdullah salam, or you are in the blessed Haram of Mawla Ghazi Abbas Alamdar salam, or you are in Bain al-Haramain, or you are at one of the many maqamat which are signposts of where different parts of the maqtal took place, or you're in your hotel, you're discussing with your fellow Zaireen, you are consuming a meal. There is girya and gham in everything that you do. And this is very different from Najaf, this is very different from Kadhamiyya, this is very different from Samarra, where if you partake in these activities in Najaf, there is a lot of gham, there is a lot of difficulty, but there is also the majestic beauty of Amir al-Mu'mineen. There is this overwhelming sense of oneness with Ali ibn Abi Talib and a deep and rooted celebration in the heart to have come and placed your forehead on the dahleez of Abu Turab, salamullahi alayha. And in Qadhamiyya, there is a tranquility that can only be described as Jannatul Moosa wa Jawad. The Jannah of Imam al-Qadhim alayhi salam and Imam al-Jawad is special because in Qadhamiyya there is serenity, there is peace, there is a calm stillness that you again find very unique to this place of Qadhamiyya. And it's particularly profound because surrounding the Haram is a very active, bustling market. But the moment that you step into the Haram, the atmosphere changes. It's as if a light switch was flicked and you move from this dunya into the dunya of Muhammad and al-Muhammad alayhi salam. And this is despite the fact that our scholars, our Imam, our poets write that while there was no day like the day of Abu Abdullah, there were no years like the years of Imam al-Qadhim alayhi salam. Imam al-Qadhim suffered great musibah in his life. He suffered great difficulty in his life. But despite this, there is this tranquility there. And likewise, when you go to Samarra, there is a particular experience that befalls the mu'min. And it reminds you that today, Samarra is one of the most difficult ziyarats to go on because physically you are put through a lot to get there because of the security. It's an area that is still under great danger. So it's not as simple as walking into the harams here in Karbala or in Najaf. And it reminds us of the way in which in their lives the Asqariyin Imams buried in that blessed haram were cut off from their Shia. They were physically separated from their mu'mineen, and it was made very difficult for them to engage and interact with mu'mineen. But here in Karbala we find mushkilat. You find the heart is not settled, and you find that there is no ease or comfort. Nonetheless, when you place your head on the threshold, the dahleez of the haram of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, he carries and lifts away all of your mushkilat. And that's the mu'jiza of Husayn ibn Ali alayhi salam. Because despite everything that befell these lands, Husayn ibn Ali is the ultimate Bab al-Hawaij, the door to our hajat, the door to our wishes and our desires. And tonight being the night of his 6-month-old, I wanted us to briefly look at one of the outcomes of the endeavors and pains of Imam al-Sajjad, Sayyid al-Sajideen, Imam Zayn al-Abideen alayhi salatu wassalam, and how the events of Karbala and the event in particular of the martyrdom of his baby brother Ali al-Asghar, known as Abdullah al-Radi here in the Arabic society and culture, had a profound impact on his brother and would dictate the way in which his brother would engage with Islam and the propagation of Islam thereafter. Imam Sajjad, as I shared with you maybe on the first or second night, left us two very great gifts. One, Sahifa of Imam Sajjad, Sahifa Sajjadiyya, and the second, Risalaat al-Haqooq, the Treaty of Rights. And this Treaty of Rights is phenomenal. It is a very short, you could call it booklet, you could call it a collection of the qalam of our Imam when it comes to the rights of the body part, the eyes, the Lord that we worship, the prayers that we pray, the neighbors, the family, the children. We're going to look at one of these inshallah on the night of Ali al-Akbar alayhi salatu wasalam inshallah. And then it goes even into the right of the people who have a claim against you, the right of someone with whom you have a disagreement, all kinds of different rights. But it's the Imam's choice to focus on this particular work that I want us to explore very briefly this evening. And that's because Risalaat al-Haqooq pulls man back to his most core components. And you may wonder why. Why is it that the Imam feels the need to have to go back to the most basic foundational concept of rights? The fact that even your enemy should not be mistreated. The fact that even that person who has harmed you should not be mistreated, in the way that his grandfather Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam would ensure water is given to his murderer, water is given to Ibn Muljam al-La'in. His son is reminding the masses, don't forget what my grandfather did when he was struck. And the reason comes to Karbala, because in Karbala, Sayyid al-Sajideen alayhi salatu wassalam witnessed man in their most depraved, their most low, their most abased, where they were ready to not only kill a 6-month-old, but behead the body of a 6-month-old, where they were ready to cut fingers and arms, where they were ready to tear apart the body of a child, where they were ready to kill men, women, children indiscriminately. And you find when Imam Sajjad sees that, he understands Hukm Imamat, profound wisdom granted by the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that there is a need to reset. Only 60 years after the Hijrah, less than a century since the prophetic mission was announced, he realizes that there is a need to reset the Muslim Ummah and remind them of the realities. And that's why you find this great work. And it is a great work because it's the work of our Imam. It's also a great work because it's a great gateway into the path of Muhammad and al-Muhammad. We live in the West. We interact professionally at work. We engage with people around us, society, all the time. And very often when we introduce Islam to them, we need to be very thought through in how we're introducing that Islam. Because the works of the likes of Dua Arafah that we looked at on the second night we were together in Riyash, and the likes of Risalaat al-Haqooq, and the likes of the Sahifa of Imam Sajjad, the Sahifa Alawiyya of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Sahifa Mahdawiyya of the Imam of our time, Sahib al-Amr. These books offer a very special understanding of what the path of al-Muhammad is. And these books, in very many ways, are what set us aside from everyone else, because no one has the du'as or the literature of the lovers of Muhammad and al-Muhammad. So when you pick up Risalaat al-Haqooq, you see that 1400 years ago, Imam Sajjad is talking about the kinds of concepts that even today continue to be debated. What is the most fundamental human right that should be given to everyone, regardless of kith or kin, friend or foe? What are the most basic expectations in situations that may arise? Yet you find Imam Sajjad is addressing these very concepts. And Imam Sajjad is also teaching us through these things. When he talks about the rights of the parent and the child, the rights of the father and the mother, the rights of the neighbor and the loved one, the rights of those who are in need, he's reminding us of our duty. He's reminding us that his grandfather, Abu Darab والسلام, was known as the father of the orphans. And he would look after the orphans and the needy. So when Imam Sajjad is then leaving us a work, alayhi salam, in which he talks about the rights of those who need from us, he's reminding us that you have a haqq, that they have a haqq over you and you have a responsibility towards them. And he's reminding us of how the situation was in his time. For Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, through the foundations that he built in the spirituality and in the propagation of the madhab through the likes of the Risalaat, would then establish the foundations that Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam and Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam would blossom into the fruits that were now our modern day Hawza system. And they would introduce this academic style approach to the propagation of the madhab of Muhammad and al-Muhammad alayhi salam. All of that was made possible because of the efforts of Sayyid al-Sajideen, Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salatu wasalam. You find that alongside the Risala we have the Sahifa, in which the Imam has these beautiful du'as and munajat. And there's a subtle difference between these as well. Du'as, as one of our famous khatib said, du'as can be recited by everyone. But munajat, the whispered prayers, are a conversation between the loved and the beloved. Only the loved speaks in that way. And munajat again set us aside. When we have munajat of Amir al-Mu'mineen that we recited a few nights ago in Masjid Kufa, Mawlaya ya Mawlaya, I am and you are and I am, and who can be except. Most beautiful lines you'll find. And Imam Sajjad in his Sahifa has very similar. And he also has du'as for all different parts of the year. When you sight the new moon, when the month is ending, when the month of Shahr Ramadan is beginning, when it's ending, when you're in difficulty, when you may have anxiety, when you're in need, when you have a financial difficulty, when you have a health issue. In the Sahifa, there are du'as for all of these different situations. So I implore you, inshallah, make the effort. If you have an iPhone or an Android on both the Play Store and the App Store, there are Sahifa and Risalaat al-Haqooq apps nowadays. It's so easy. Or if you go to Al-Islam or go into Google and type in al-Islam, Risalaat al-Haqooq, you will find very good, top quality translations of Risalaat al-Haqooq, and likewise Sahifa Sajjadiyya of Imam Sajjad al-Islam. Familiarize yourself with these works so that when we come together, we can ponder on them. I remind myself before any of you, I need to familiarize myself with these works. I need to spend more time reflecting on the words of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam to be able to understand better this entire event of Karbala. We are here on the land of Karb and Bala, and it reminds me of two things. One is the way in which Zawar used to come, and that was they would come in the middle of the night, and they would have to walk a certain number of steps, and then they would go down on their hands and knees and crawl towards the grave. Out of love, yes, but also because there was no golden domes, there was no minarets, there were no lights, there was no nishana except for the smell of Jannah that would come from the grave of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. The second thing it reminds me of is the malaika, those creations of Allah, the angels, who we're told are allowed to come only once in their entire life cycle for this ziyarah. It humbles you. If you've been twice, thrice, 5 times, 10 times, there are people in the group I travel with who for 30 years have been coming for Ziyarat al-Hussein. Imagine how blessed are we that time and again we can come. And it's an important reminder for everyone who is yet to visit. Make an effort. The Imams say even if you have to take a loan to go for Ziyarat al-Hussein, because Ziyarat al-Hussein is a duty upon all of us. Throughout the year, there are different occasions when you can come. I've been saying to you throughout, and I'll say again, try and spend at least one Ashura here. But also throughout the rest of the year, there are opportunities. During the Istishhad, the Shahad of Bibi Fatima والسلام, in Fatimiyya, there are many programs here. During the month of Sha'ban, the month of Shahr Ramadan, the month of Rabi al-Awwal, throughout the year, the day of Arafah brings some 8 to 10 million zawar. Usually on Ashura there is 8 to 12 million. During Arba'een there is 20 to 25 million. These great numbers are phenomenal when you think of Iraq and the difficulty that the people of Iraq have been through, not only in the last 20 years but maybe in the last 40 to 50 years. But how phenomenally giving they are, how open their hearts are. You walk from here to the Haram of Mullah Abbas, you can see from behind me, this is not more than a 5-minute walk, but there is mawqib after mawqib. Someone is serving you chai, someone is serving you water, someone is giving out sharbat, someone is giving out fruit drinks, someone is giving out lunch, dinner, rice, different salads, all kinds of different things are being given. There is mawqibs where majalis are being recited. There is mawqibs where reenactments are taking place of different parts of the day of Ashura. There are mawqibs where they have recreated moments from the day in still format, such as the body of Abu Abdullah covered in arrows. And inshallah, I promised, and I will try my best, if it's possible, maybe to send some videos from outside in the WhatsApp group, or to Sayyid Intizar who can share them with you. The internet isn't great, unfortunately, it makes it quite difficult even to upload these lectures, but we will try and find a way. This is the land of Karb and Bala. And when you walk the streets of Karb and Bala, you come to a particular maqam where they say the people were astonished Qiyamah did not come down on Karbala at that maqam. For that maqam has a jhula on it, a cradle, a crib that rocks back and forth as if it still carries the body of Ali al-Asghar alayhi salam. That maqam is the exact spot where Abi Abdullah would take his 6-month-old and ask for water. But where does the story of the 6-month-old begin? In the city of Medina. When the Qafila is leaving, the 6-month-old is only 10 days old, a newborn baby. As they are leaving, his sister Sughra salamullahi alayha would take her brother. They say one after another the ladies would come, but the brother would not leave the sister. Until Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam himself comes. He comes to the baby and he whispers in the baby's ear. As soon as he whispers, the baby lets go of the sister and comes towards Aba Abdullah. Bibi Sughra says to her father, "Oh my father, take my brother, I understand. But my father, tell me one thing, what did you whisper to my brother that he came straight away?" Aba Abdullah looks at Sughra. He says, "Sughra, I said to Asghar, if you must stay, stay. Hurmala's spear, Hurmala's arrow, Hussein will take." Immediately Asghar let go, but Sughra became worried. She said, "Baba, my brother will be shaheed." Allahu Akbar. Come, O Bibi Sughra, to the day of Ashura. For after all of the companions are shaheed, Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam has been shaheed. All of the children have been shaheed. Aba Abdullah comes out into the Maidan and calls out, "Allah hal min nasir yansuruna." Is there no one amongst you to help us? As he's doing this, the cries from the tents of the ladies begins to rise. Aba Abdullah goes in. He says, "Oh my ladies, be patient. There is a lot for which you will weep after me. But for now, no Hussein is amongst you, so do not weep like this." They say, "Oh Aba Abdullah, we weep because when you called out, Ala hal min nasir, your baby threw himself from the jeweler to the ground, as if to say, Labbaik Ya Hussein, your Asghar is still here." Aba Abdullah would take his 6-month-old. He would whisper in the ear and a smile would appear on the face of the 6-month-old. He would go towards the enemies with the 6-month-old under his aba, under his cloak. As he comes close, they start to say, "Look, Hussein has brought the Quran to intercede between us." If only they knew how precious the Quran under the cloak of Hussein was. For Hussein lifted his cloak and would bring out his 6-month-old. You are parents. How much do we try that the sun does not hit the skin of our children? It's 45 degrees heat. We try and protect our children even now. But the 6-month-old of Aba Abdullah, now is his moment when the burning heat of Karbala hits his cheek. Abu Abdullah says, "O people, if you have a fight with us, the adults, what is the crime of the 6-month-old?" They say the army of Umar ibn Sa'd al-La'in begins to go back and forth. Some say Hussein is right, feed the 6-month-old. Others say no, kill all of them. In this time Abu Abdullah goes, he places Ali al-Asghar on the burning sand of Karbala. Imagine the heat at the time of almost Asr. The whole day the sands have been burning under the sun. He places the body of his son. He looks to his son as if to say, "Now my son, in your hands it is." The son would open his mouth. A parched tongue would come out. And the people would begin to cry and weep seeing this. But still no one comes forward. So Abu Abdullah picks up the baby. He begins to look towards the people. At that moment, Hurmala fires an arrow, but not a one-headed arrow, not a two-headed arrow, a three-headed arrow that was used to take down the animals, heads towards the neck of Ali al-Asghar. It enters the neck from one side and goes into the arm of the father from the other. The baby looks him up as if to say, "Father, what have they done? The Maqtal uses a word that if you understand, may Allah bless you and protect you, for your hearts may stop. The Maqtal say, Ali al-Asghar begins to flutter in the way a bird flaps its wings, his arms and legs going up and down until the soul of Ali al-Asghar leaves his body. Allahu Akbar. But that is not the end for Ali al-Asghar, because Abu Abdullah must take the boy back. He goes towards the Khayma. 7 times he would go and he would come back. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un, time and again, until finally he goes. What does he find? A sister waiting. Bibi Sakina standing there, asking, Father, did they quench the thirst of my brother Asghar? But no, what does he show? He lifts the abaya and they find the body of Ali al-Asghar. But even that is not the end of the musibah of Ali al-Asghar, because Abu Abdullah would dig a grave with his sword and he would bury Ali al-Asghar behind the tents. And they would say on the next day, they take the spears, they count the heads. Shimr al-Lain says there is 1 head missing. I saw Hussein burying a treasure behind the tents. Let me go and see. They say he takes a spear and begins to stab it into the ground of Karbala until he stabs and blood begins to come out. He would pull out the spear and the body of Ali al-Asghar would come with it. That khanjar that yesterday cut the neck of the father, on the 11th of Muharram would be cutting the neck of Ali al-Asghar. ألا لعنة الله قوم الظالمين إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون.